Hi, I'm Sabrina, I'm in Seattle, and today I'm here to talk about my 10 favorite books from 2020. Okay, so I know everyone's doing these like top 10 favorite reads for the year. Most of my books actually didn't come out in 2020. These are just my favorite books I read in 2020. I think it would be interesting to do a top favorite books that came out of the year, but I'm not gonna do that. So today I'm just gonna do my favorite books that I read in 2020, and they're not in any particular order because these are all 5-star reads, so there was not really like, I can't really put them in any order, but because they're all like beautiful and wonderful in their own ways. So I will just start kind of at the top of the stack and move on down. So here we go. So first up on the list is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This book has been everywhere. If you are a thriller, suspense, crime, mystery lover, you probably have already heard of this book, probably have already read it, but if not, I'll tell you a little bit about it. First, I would say if you are somebody who is a little bit queasy or sensitive to gory details or sexual assault or things of that nature, trigger warnings all up in this book. However, if you don't mind reading that stuff, the story is pretty incredible. I really loved this book. It's about two sisters who have had a falling out and they're estranged, and then one of them, their husband dies. And it brings them back together because they start to reconnect after the wife of the husband, clearly, the wife starts to find different things within his office that she normally is never allowed to go into or whatever, and then it really starts to unravel their history and their story together. And so it's really been it's really a roller coaster ride around these two sisters and their relationship, but even more so the secrets of the people that we love that we may not always know everything about. So love this book, really, really good. 5 stars, definitely one of the faves, clearly because it's in this video. Next up is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I think this was on pretty much everyone's favorite list from 2019. I didn't read it until this year. I bought it last year, but I couldn't bring myself to read it because for whatever reason, I just was anxious about it, but absolutely, absolutely loved this book. The twist that is in this book blew me away, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But essentially it's about this girl who has decided that she's going to be living and has applied for a job to live in this building and house sitting for this wonderful apartment at this exclusive building in New York City. She's from a small town, has been like reading books about this building her whole life, so it's pretty like amazing for her to actually get to live in this building. But there's really weird rules, like she has to sign a contract where she can't like bring people over, she can't stay away overnight, things like that. So then it's kind of unraveling the mystery of what has happened to the people who have lived in the building beforehand, what has happened to the people who are living in the building now, things of that nature. And it is so amazing. This was the first book I've read from Riley Sager, and he blew me away. Love it. Just can't recommend this book enough. Next up is The One by John Mars. I read this book as part of my book club with my friends, and it was so fun. It has a trope that I love. I guess it's a trope or it's just a writing style, I'm not really sure, but it's multiple viewpoints, multiple stories, multiple people's stories within the actual story itself with an overarching kind of theme. And I love books like that. It just keeps me so much more engaged. I think so I just have like such a short attention span, so I'm like off in La La Land, but these kinds of stories really engage me. Anyway, so what is so amazing about this book, if you haven't heard of it before, it does have a kind of a sci-fi sort of feel in it, but essentially this company has come up with a way that you can find your soulmate with a DNA match, and it tells the story of about, I think, 4 or 5 different couples and their experience of being DNA matched. And it is quite an interesting story, and you feel for some of them, just like your heart is broken and like it, or your heart is filled with love, or you are just like creeped out, or whatever the case is. Like there are just so many different perspectives on how having your DNA matched to your soulmate could work, and it's so fascinating. So loved this one as well. The next 5-star read I had was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. Again, pretty sure this came out in 2019, and I think everybody had it on their books or on their list last year. Late to the party. I don't read a whole lot of romance novels. I have a couple, but I don't read a ton of them. And this one I just thought was really fun. I'm a huge fan of the hate to love trope in romances. And it was so wonderful. It could be partially because I read this book while I was before the pandemic happened. I was actually on a girls trip in Palm Springs with some girlfriends and read this by the pool, and it was just fabulous. And looking back, I can also remember just how fabulous it was to be able to travel and do things like be with friends. What? So this couple gets married, and almost everybody in the wedding party and at the wedding get food poisoning. So the couple can't go on their honeymoon, but they want the honeymoon to be used. So they ask the best man and the maid of honor, who are like best friends, and the bride's sister to go on the trip together. So then they just go out to Maui and they have this really interesting and amazing time. So anyway, it's a rom-com. There's not a whole lot to it. It's a fluff book, but I really liked it. It was a fun read. Next up is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I mean, this book is incredible. It was a 5-star for me. I don't think that it was it didn't crush me in the way that I think it has other people, but I thought the story was written so beautifully. It was definitely written in different timelines, and I really enjoyed being able to go back and forth between the current state and history of Evelyn Hugo. So Evelyn is a famous actress, and this goes through her she's telling her life story to a woman, a journalist that she's asked for. Who's kind of a low-level journalist, and is getting a really amazing break to be able to write this story, the biography essentially of Evelyn Hugo. And it goes through her entire love history with her husbands and the love of her life and just the whole story. And you find out how the journalist is connected to Evelyn Hugo, even though they had no idea, or the journalist has no idea until the end. It's a beautiful story about a woman going through it and determining what makes her happy and figuring out what that is, and finding love. And it's an incredibly beautiful story. So 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And Taylor Jenkins Reid makes another appearance with Daisy Jones and the Six. So I'm not gonna lie, this is technically a 2019 read, but I didn't read it till the end of the year, so I'm gonna count it anyway. I did buy a copy because I had a copy that was given to me from a friend that I lent to someone else, but I just bought my own copy. So, Daisy Jones and the Six. Again, this is a very interestingly written story, different timelines. A journalist's point of view is in here. A journalist is involved interviewing band members, kind of hearing, it's like podcast style, interviewing band members of their experiences with Daisy Jones and the Six as they shot up to stardom, and then just kind of the whole story. So this was a really beautiful book. I absolutely adored it. I really loved the writing style. The movie, or not the movie, the TV show, I think it's a TV show. It's coming out in the next year or so. Reese Witherspoon's company, Hello Sunshine, I think it's Hello Sunshine. Anyway, they're producing it. I absolutely cannot wait. I haven't listened to this on audiobook only because now that I know the TV show is coming out, I'm really hoping that I can enjoy the music from this in the series. So, because I would hate to listen to the audiobook, fall in love with the way that the music is composed in the audiobook, and then it not translate into the TV show for whatever reason, because I just know that I'm gonna love it, and I'm hoping to be able to get a soundtrack because I just want to listen to all the songs that are in this book. It's amazing. Love it. Daisy Jones. Next, Beach Read by Emily Henry. As I said, I don't read a lot of romances, but this is my second and last romance on this list. I loved this book. It's again has the hate to love trope in it. I really liked that the woman in this story was really going through a lot, dealing with the passing of her father and finding out different, that everything she thought was maybe not what she thought it was, and true love and fairy tales don't always exist the way that you think that they do. And then she meets up with her next door neighbor who she knew in college, and there's the whole like back and forth, whatever. I will say I also enjoyed this because there's like another underlying story that's kind of going on, like a mystery you're trying to solve with it. So I always love that. But I thought that the steamy scenes in here were quite steamy, so they were very good. So anyway, loved beach read. Next is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And I read this for my book club with my friends as well, and loved this. It did take me a while to get into it, I will admit. This is a little bit of a slower story for me, and it is historical fiction. I like historical fiction, and I love like World War II stories, and particularly women in World War II or in the World Wars, and the things that they did in those, what they did and they experienced during that time. I just think that those stories are just always really fun for me to kind of dive into and explore. So this was definitely that. And like I said, it did take me a little bit to get into it, but once I did, I started flying through it. This is a story of two sisters that were living in France when it became occupied by Germany, and how they both react to the war and the occupation and their decisions that they make. And they have totally different kinds of like ideals and the way that they feel like they should behave, what they should be doing in that time. And I think it's such an interesting story with sisters that shows that there is love and bonding that can go across years and time, and the bravery of women. Yeah, I feel like I'm rambling about it, but it's a beautiful book. It did make me cry, which I'm not a huge, like, I don't love cry books. You guys will probably hear me say that a ton on this channel. Don't like cry books, but this was one that I really loved. It didn't wreck me the way that I know that some people, it's like wrecked them. But if you love a good emotional story, if you have sisters, I don't have sisters, so maybe that's why it didn't quite get me to the same level. But if you have sisters, I can only imagine this being like a beyond incredible book for you to read and have relate to. Next is The Night Swim by Megan Golden. This was a 5-star book for me as well. I will also say again, if you are sensitive to sexual assault, there's a lot of trigger warning. That's what this entire book is about, so you should definitely be aware of that. It is excellently written. There's a podcast kind of perspective of it, and it's solving a mystery and uncovering kind of the history or the story behind what happened to these people. And there's like a past story that's being uncovered while there's a current story going on. Both revolve around sexual assault, and there's a trial that's happening, right? So that's why the podcaster is there, because she's covering the trial of a popular swimmer who is accused of sexual assault. I don't know where that idea could have come from. But anyway, so there is, so it's just covering the trial. And there's also some local mysteries that the podcaster is being asked to discover around about another girl that was in the town. So it travels multiple timelines, multiple viewpoints, and it was really moving. It was a really good book, really moving book. But again, if you are sensitive to sexual assault, that's like, this entire book is about that. So just trigger warning. Finally, I think this actually is my favorite book of the year, so maybe it's perfect that it's last, but The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Dare. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. This book is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's told from the perspective of Aduni, who's a 14-year-old girl in Nigeria, and her entire story from being very, very poor and having to live this really challenging life that she has to go through, from child marriage through to being a servant for this rich family. And it's just got a whole lot of an amazing story in it. I'm not describing it very well at all, but essentially Aduni is one of these incredible characters that you just feel for and fall in love with. And she tells her story in very much broken English. So if you have any struggles with reading that, you might struggle with reading this book. But I actually found that it enhanced Aduni's voice and really made me feel like I was understanding the world that she was living in. And it is so beautiful, the strength that this little girl has in the experiences that she goes through, that I think about, you know, myself at the age of 14, 15, 16, and I don't know that I could have been as strong as this character is. And it's a beautiful book. And there's some parts that are kind of funny, and then there are parts that make you cry, and there are parts that make you feel hopeful, and parts that make you incredibly angry. And it's really just runs the entire gamut and gives you all the feels. And it just is, I can't really say enough about this. I think it's gotten some attention, but I think it definitely has been overshadowed by some of the other books that came out this year that are good or are on my TBR, so I assume that they're good. But I don't think it's got quite enough of the attention that it deserves. It's a really incredible book, and I can't recommend enough. So definitely was my favorite of 2020. All right, there you have it. Those are my top 10 favorite books that I read in 2020. Were any of my picks on your favorites list too? Or were they from previous years? Because I feel like a lot of these are from like previous years. But let me know what your favorite books were too. So you can leave a comment, subscribe if you want to. Love to have you here, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, bye.